My name is Lena Martinez, and I'm 33 years old. I grew up in a family where success was measured by power, by how much people respected you, how many they feared you. My father, Eduardo, was a military general, respected and feared. My mother, Victoria, was always obsessed with appearances. She wanted the best for her family, but only the right kind of best. My brother, Carlos, was the golden child. Everything came easy to him: money, women, respect. As for me, I was the safe daughter, the one who took the less glamorous route. I joined the military, not out of passion, but out of a need to prove that I was just as capable as him, just as worthy of their respect. I never got it, not the way he did. They never quite understood. While Carlos was out getting accolades, I spent years in courtrooms, proving myself over and over again to a system that always treated me like a background player. Never the star, but at least I earned my seat at the table. Now, I'm sitting in a courtroom, dressed in full uniform, Air Force blue and pressed, with my medals glinting under the harsh lights. I walk in, my boots clicking on the cold marble floor. The room falls silent. My heart races, not because I'm scared, but because I know exactly how this is going to play out. My mother, seated in the third row, lets out a quiet snicker. I catch her eye. She sees my uniform, and the same look of disdain crosses her face. Why can't you just be like Carlos? Her eyes seem to say. My sister, Sophia, doesn't even bother to hide her rolling eyes. She thinks I'm just playing dress-up, trying too hard. In this room, in front of all these strangers, they still see me as a joke. The judge, Judge Andrew Powell, clears his throat and opens the case. I feel my stomach tighten. The United States versus Carlos Martinez, he announces. I blink. My brother's name hits my ears like a slap. The room is deathly silent for a moment before the judge lifts his gaze. His eyes lock with mine and his face pales. He freezes. The air in the room feels like ice. I don't know why, but the quiet is unnerving. The gavel thuds on the desk. Captain Martinez. He pauses, a strange hesitation in his voice. Captain Lena Martinez? The Lena Martinez from Operation Nightshade. My stomach drops. How the hell does he know that? 2 U.S. Marshals, standing by the bench, snap to attention, their rigid postures betraying the tension building in the room. The judge shifts in his seat, fumbling for his glasses. He murmurs to himself, clearly stunned, "Dear God." The words cut through the air. "A moment pasas." My mother shifts in her seat, visibly uncomfortable now. Her eyes flick to me, then quickly away. The snicker is gone, replaced by a tight-lipped frown. My life, my career, suddenly feels like it's on display, in a way I never wanted it to be. I came here today to prosecute a case, but in this room, surrounded by family, I feel like a ghost. My uniform was supposed to be my armor, but now it feels like a target. Carlos, my brother, is at the center of this storm. My family's golden boy is a criminal. My life's work is about to turn into a public war with my own blood. I take my seat at the prosecution table, the weight of everyone's gaze on me. My palms are sweating, my heart racing. I stare straight ahead, trying to keep my hands steady. I am not going to back down. I'm about to make a move that will break my family. But can I? Carlos doesn't know it yet. But the man sitting next to me in the defendant's chair is the man who will break me. And him. Together. The room feels smaller now. The walls are closing in. There's no going back. The trial is just beginning. It's been a week since the trial began. The sound of my boots hitting the marble floor still echoes in my head. The courtroom has become a battleground. But what I didn't expect was how much the war would be fought at home. I always knew my family would be the hardest part of this job, but I didn't think I'd be fighting them too. Maybe if you didn't take that goddamn uniform so seriously, you'd be less miserable, my mother said over dinner, tossing me one of her signature scowls as she passed the mashed potatoes. She said it casually, as if it were some obvious truth. Like my life, my service was a joke. Carlos, my brother, smiled across the table, his usual easy charm intact. He never took anything seriously, including the fact that the very government I served had him on the wrong side of the law. I'm not sure how he managed to keep as cool as his empire crumbled, but I couldn't even look at him without feeling nauseous. It's been like this my entire life. Look, Lena, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're not going to get anywhere by playing the part of a soldier. You're supposed to be helping me out, not running away into that suit every chance you get. His voice dripped with condescension. I could feel my jaw tightening. I had done everything to prove myself. Every late night, every second job during law school. All of it while Carlos was throwing away money, spending it on parties, and buying his way out of every mistake. I was the one who had to fight for every step forward. And yet, here I was, still second-rate in my family's eyes. The tension in the room thickened, just like it always did when Carlos spoke. He still thought of me as the little sister who couldn't keep up. The laughter came again, this time from my father, Eduardo, who sat at the head of the table. Lena, sweetheart, let me tell you something, he said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. You're smart, but you're wasting your potential. This whole legal eagle thing, you could do so much more. But that uniform, it's a costume, nothing more. A costume for a life you're never going to live. I swallowed. Hard. I wanted to shout at them. To tell them I wasn't doing this for them, but for me. That I had built my life the way I wanted, even if they never understood. But no matter how much I fought to prove my worth, they would never see me. Not like they saw Carlos. He was their golden boy, their future. My phone buzzed on the table, breaking the moment. I glanced down. It was a message from my colleague at the base. Urgent. The judge has been compromised. Someone's been messing with the evidence. I didn't need to read the rest. My heart skipped. This trial was about to blow up. And it wasn't just Carlos who was in trouble anymore. The entire investigation, my investigation, was under threat. Excuse me, I said, rising from the table without another word. I didn't care about their mockery anymore. I had to get to the bottom of this before it all collapsed. I stepped outside into the cool night air, the smell of the city's damp streets hitting me like a slap. How could they not see? How could they not understand? But there was no time to wallow in self-pity. I had a case to save. I started my car and drove straight to the base, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The truth about this case was bigger than Carlos, bigger than any family drama. If the evidence was tampered with, this whole thing could come crashing down. I couldn't afford to let that happen. As I pulled up to the gate, my phone buzzed again. Lena, be careful. Someone's watching you. My grip tightened around the steering wheel. I wasn't surprised. The walls were closing in, and I knew I was being watched. But I didn't care. I wasn't stopping now. I'd spent my whole life being underestimated. Today, I was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. The front gate opened, and I drove past the armed guards, my heart hammering with every second. I parked and made my way to the operations center. I was going to find out who was tampering with my investigation, and if they thought they could stop me, they were sorely mistaken. Just as I was about to step into the building, I caught a movement in the shadows. Someone was following me. My breath caught. This wasn't just about a trial anymore. It was a threat to my career, my family, and my life. I knew there was no going back now. The silence that followed Carlos's message crushed me. My fingers gripped the phone tighter as I read the words again. Lena, you need to listen to me. There's something about Mom you don't know. She's more involved in this than you think. My breath hitched. I looked around, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows, but the hallway outside the conference room was empty. I had always thought I knew my family, every flaw, every fault line. But the truth? The truth always had a way of sneaking up on you when you least expected it. And now it was coming for me. I had to confront her. The thoughts raced through my mind as I walked back to my office. Every decision I'd made in the last few days, The case, the trial, the broken relationships with my family now felt like a house of cards waiting to collapse. The hallway lights buzzed above me, the noise a constant reminder of how far I had fallen into this mess. I pressed the elevator button, my palms damp with sweat. I hadn't seen my mother since the dinner a week ago, and I was already dreading the confrontation. But I knew I had no choice. "Everything I do, Lena, is for the good of the family," she always said, as if that was enough to justify anything. "We take care of each other." But the more I thought about Carlos's words, the more I felt the sting of betrayal cutting through the bond one once believed we shared. The elevator door slid open with soft chime. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the top floor, where my mother's office was. The elevator hummed upward, its soft whirring a steady pulse in my chest. "For the good of the family." Her words echoed in my ears like a constant reminder of the lie I had bought into for so long. I needed to know what she was hiding. The door to my mother's office was slightly ajar. I could see her silhouette through the frosted glass. She was sitting at her desk, her back to me, bent over some papers, and for a moment, I wondered if I should just leave. Walk away. But no. The questions were eating at me. I needed answers. I pushed the door open without knocking, and she didn't even flinch. Her voice, as calm as ever, rose from behind the desk. "Lena, you've come for your nightly lecture." I walked inside, closing the door behind me. "I came for the truth." She didn't look up. "I'm not sure what you mean, sweetheart." "The truth about you. About Carlos. About everything." My voice was colder than I intended, but I didn't care. I needed this. Finally, she turned, her expression unchanged. "I don't know what you're talking about." I crossed the room in a few long strides, my eyes scanning the papers on her desk. My mother wasn't one for secrets, at least not openly. But the way she avoided eye contact made me uneasy. She was hiding something. "I spoke to Carlos," I said, forcing myself to remain calm, even as I felt the heat rise in my chest. "He told me things, Mom. About you." Her eyes flickered with an emotion I couldn't place, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Your brother's a fool. Always was." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "Carlos said you've been involved in things you shouldn't be." "He said you—" I stopped myself, not sure if I wanted to finish that sentence. But my mother knew. Her face tightened, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in her carefully crafted facade. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You think Carlos has it all figured out, don't you?" I stepped closer, my voice lowering. "I think you've been protecting him. You and Dad both." She remained silent for a long beat. Then she said, "You want the truth, Lena? You really want to know what's been going on?" Her voice was barely above a whisper now. I never wanted this life for him. But what we did, it was to protect him. It was to protect all of us. I stared at her, trying to process her words. Protect him from what? I asked. Her eyes finally met mine. The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then she said, "From a debt you'll never understand. A debt your father has kept hidden for years. I did what I had to do to keep the family safe." I froze. My heart pounded in my ears. "What do you mean, a debt?" She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "I don't have time to explain everything, Lena, but you need to stop this case. You need to let it go." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't just dealing with a criminal syndicate anymore. I was dealing with my own family secrets. "I can't," I said, my voice tight. "This is bigger than Carlos. It's bigger than any of us." I paused, my eyes scanning her face. "You've been lying to me. All this time you've been lying." Her face twisted with something like regret. "Lena, stop. You're too deep into this. You don't understand what's at stake." "You're wrong," I snapped. "I understand more than you think." The door to the office suddenly slammed open, and I spun around, startled. Maya Grant stood there, her cold eyes locking onto mine. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice low and dangerous. I took a step back, my pulse quickening. Maya wasn't supposed to be here. Not now. Not ever. The tension in the room thickened, and I knew this was no coincidence. Maya was part of this. The conspiracy ran deeper than I ever imagined. She wasn't just the defense attorney. She was the one pulling the strings. "I think you should leave," Maya said, her smile almost predatory. I could feel the walls closing in. My family, my investigation, everything was starting to collapse. And suddenly I realized that the real fight wasn't just about Carlos. It was about who would control the truth. And right now, I wasn't sure I'd be the one holding the reins. "Lena, you need to walk away before it's too late." Maya's voice echoed in my ears as I stood frozen, caught between my past and the nightmare unfolding before me. I wasn't sure if I could walk away anymore. I was already running late when I got the call. My phone buzzed as I shoved papers into my briefcase, trying to steady my breathing. It was Maya Grant. I didn't answer at first. I had just left my mother's office, her last words echoing in my mind. "It's too late for you, Lena. You don't understand." There was something hollow in her voice that made me wonder if she was scared or just ashamed. I didn't have the luxury to figure it out right now. The message pinged again. "Lena, you're making a big mistake. Meet me." I cursed under my breath. Maya was playing me, manipulating me with that same calm, smooth voice she'd used on me for years. She was the one who told me that loyalty was everything, that friends were the only people who mattered when the system failed. Now she was part of the system I was supposed to fight against. I knew I had to meet her. If Maya was behind this, I needed to understand why. I couldn't go into the trial without knowing my enemy inside and out. The coffee shop was dimly lit, tucked between two high-rise buildings. As I stepped inside, the scent of stale coffee and muffled conversations filled the air. Maya was sitting in the corner booth, her back to me as usual. She was never the one to make the first move in any conversation, always waiting for the other person to step into her world. I took a seat across from her, the low hum of the room setting a nervous undertone. "You wanted to see me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't respond at first, just glanced at her watch. The silence stretched between us until she finally looked up, her expression unreadable. "You're deep in it now, Lena," she said, her voice smooth, calculating. "You've crossed a line." I frowned. "I'm not the one who crossed a line. You are." Maya tilted her head, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Is that what you think? You think you can win this case and walk away unscathed?" She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You're in a game you don't understand. You think you're prosecuting Carlos, but it's so much bigger than that." I felt the chill in her voice, the warning that I was playing with fire and didn't even know it. "I don't need your games, Maya," I snapped. "I'm here to take down criminals. People like Carlos." I paused, the words catching in my throat. Carlos, my brother, who had been the perfect son, the one everyone admired, but now I knew his hands were just as dirty as anyone else's. I was done pretending he was the golden boy. Maya studied me, her gaze piercing. "Is that really what you want to believe, Lena? That it's just about Carlos?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "I thought you were smarter than this." The word smarter stung more than I wanted to admit. Maya had always been the one to question me, to make me doubt myself. The one person I thought I could trust was now the one pushing me toward this dangerous edge. "What's your endgame, Maya?" I demanded. "What are you hiding?" Her lips parted in a slow, deliberate smile. She knew something I didn't. I needed to find out what. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed again. A text from James, a colleague who had been working with me on the case. "Lena, you need to see this. It's about Maya. Now." I grabbed the phone, my eyes scanning the screen. There, attached was an encrypted file, titled Confidential, Maya Grant, finals. My pulse quickened. I knew I shouldn't open it right there, but I had no choice. The screen flickered as it decrypted. My fingers trembled as I read the contents. It was a list of transactions, large sums of money, several international transfers. Maya was involved in off-the-books deals with foreign governments. It wasn't just Carlos who was compromised. It was the entire system. Maya had been using me as a pawn in something much bigger than I'd ever realized. Her involvement in the syndicate was more than just a defense strategy. She was the architect. I looked up at Maya, who had been watching me the entire time, her face unreadable. She saw the look in my eyes, the realization. You think I didn't see this coming, Lena? You think this is about you? It's never been about you, she said, her voice cold. This isn't your fight anymore. You can't win this. I felt the weight of her words crush me. She was right. This wasn't my fight. I had thought I was fighting for justice, but all along I had been playing into her hands. The door to the coffee shop slammed open. 2 men in dark suits stepped in, their eyes scanning the room like wolves. They were looking for someone, and it wasn't Maya. The men approached our table. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. Time's up, one of the men said, his tone calm but threatening. I was already moving before I even knew it, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I grabbed Maya by the arm and yanked her toward the back exit, ignoring her surprised gasp. My mind raced as I bolted for the door. We ran into the alley, the cold night air biting at my skin, but I couldn't stop now. Maya was the key. If I could get her to talk, I could expose everything, the whole conspiracy. I didn't see the car coming until it was too late. It screeched to a halt in front of us, blocking the alley. The men stepped out, guns drawn. Maya smirked, even in the face of the danger. I told you, Lena, this isn't your fight. My heart pounded in my ears. This was it. This was the end. I didn't know if I would walk away from this, but I knew one thing for sure. I was finally going to get the answers I'd been searching for, even if it meant risking everything. Lena, Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. There's something you don't know, and when you find out, it won't be me you're chasing anymore. The quiet buzz of the city outside the office window seemed so far away as I sat in front of my mother, the silence between us suffocating. My fingers drummed restlessly on the desk, but I couldn't shake the unease building in my chest. Maya's words echoed in my mind. You don't know what you're dealing with, Lena. I had never felt so alone. Even when I'd been out there, fighting to prove my worth, I had always known I could rely on my family. But now, the people I thought I could trust were slipping through my fingers, one by one. My phone buzzed again. James. It was the 3rd time today, and this time I didn't hesitate. I clicked open the message, already bracing myself for more bad news. Lena, we need to talk. Urgent. You're not going to like this. My blood ran cold. The last time he sent me a message like that, it was about Maya Grant and the trail of corruption she had been leading me down. This had to be connected. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I'll be right back, Mom, I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. She didn't respond, her eyes focused on the papers in front of her, avoiding my gaze. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, I heard her breath hitch. I didn't care anymore. There were bigger things at stake. James was waiting for me in the parking garage. His face was pale, his hands shaking as he held out a thick folder. I could tell something was wrong before he even spoke. We've got a problem, he said, glancing around nervously. This is bigger than we thought. I ripped the folder from his hands, flipping through the pages. My breath caught in my throat. A series of financial records, transfer statements, wire fraud documents, all pointing back to my mother. I blinked, the words on the page blurring in my vision. My hands were trembling as I scanned the transactions. This couldn't be real. Not my mother. She had been laundering money. Through Carlos's tech startup. using her charity to cover up the deals. The same deals I'd spent weeks investigating. I closed the folder with a snap, looking up at James, whose face was grim. "You're sure?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded. "I ran the numbers myself. It's all connected. The money transfers, the false accounts. Your mother's involved in something she can't get out of." He paused. "And so are you." I walked out of the garage, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. Everything I had believed was a lie. The case, my mother, Carlos. It was all a facade, a carefully built illusion that had started to crumble the moment I stepped into that courtroom. I had to confront her again. But this time it wasn't just about Carlos. This was about everything I had ever known. When I returned to my mother's office, the door was shut. The light inside was dim, but I could still make out her silhouette through the frosted glass. My mind raced with the possibility of what I might say, but nothing I could say would undo what I had found. I knocked once, then pushed the door open. She was sitting at her desk, her fingers pressed to her temple as if she could block the world out. When she looked up, the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She knew. Her eyes flickered with something that resembled guilt, but she quickly masked it with a calm expression. "Lena, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice steady but lacking its usual conviction. I threw the folder down in front of her, the pages of lies staring back at us both. "What's this?" I demanded. She looked at it for a moment, then back at me. "You don't understand. I did what I had to do. You have no idea what it's like to protect this family." The words hit me like a punch. Protect the family. That's what she always said when she justified the impossible things she did. But this wasn't protection. It was betrayal. "Protect us," I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. "By using us as pawns in your game? You've been hiding this from me, from Carlos, all this time." Her eyes hardened, and she stood up slowly. "You don't get to judge me, Lena. You have no idea what I've had to do to keep this family afloat. Your father, he never could see it, but I did what was necessary." My chest tightened, the weight of her words pushing the air from my lungs. "You used us," I whispered, "and you dragged me into it. I've been playing your game without even knowing the rules." Her lips curled into a thin smile. "You think this is a game? You're in way over your head, Lena. We all are." I recoiled, the truth finally sinking in. It wasn't just Carlos who was trapped in this. I was too. The phone buzzed again. Another message. "You're not done yet, Lena. We're just getting started." I froze, the words burning into me. Who was watching me now? I glanced up at my mother, but she was already walking toward the door, avoiding my gaze. The room felt smaller now, closing in. I couldn't trust anyone. Not anymore. But I couldn't back down. Not when I was so close. I had to expose the truth, even if it meant taking down the only family I had left. I turned away, the path forward uncertain. But I knew one thing. This was just the beginning, and I was done playing by their rules. The courthouse was colder than I remembered, the echo of my boots louder in the silence. It felt like a different world, one where every step mattered, every word spoken had weight. I was standing at the edge of everything I had fought for, and I was alone. I hadn't seen Carlos in days. The last time we spoke, he'd barely recognized me as the sister who used to cover for him. Now, I was the one who had to cover up his lies, his crimes. The walls were closing in on him, and I had just helped build those walls. The truth was unraveling, piece by piece. It wasn't just about Carlos anymore. It wasn't about a trial or a verdict. It was about me, the woman who spent years trying to prove she belonged, who now realized her family had never been the safe place she thought. They were the very people who had dragged her into this mess. "Lena." I turned, startled by the voice. It was Maya Grant, standing at the far end of the hallway, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing behind her eyes. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to have any power left. but there she was, holding the last card. "Don't do this," she said, her voice low and coaxing. "You can still walk away. The case, the trial, none of it matters if you let it go now. You don't have to lose everything." I felt the weight of her words, but I didn't flinch. "You've been playing me this whole time, Maya. You never cared about justice. This was all about you." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You're right. It was never about justice. It was about survival. But you're too far in now. You think you can turn back." Her gaze shifted, and I realized she wasn't alone. Behind her, a man in a dark suit stepped out of the shadows. Judge Powell. I froze. This wasn't just about Maya anymore. This was about the entire system, the very system I'd been sworn to protect. "You've done well, Captain Martinez," Judge Powell said, stepping toward me with an unsettling calm. "But your family? Your family is loyal to the wrong cause. You can't undo what's been done." I clenched my fists, but I couldn't hide the tremor in my hands. The man who had presided over Carlos's case, the one I thought was just a figurehead, was as deep in this as Maya. It was all connected, the financial schemes, the deals, the criminal networks running beneath the surface. "I don't need your approval," I said, my voice steadying, fighting the storm of panic rising in me. "And I'm not backing down. Not now. Not ever." Maya's eyes narrowed. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't understand. Your family has always been disposable. Carlos, your mother, your father, they were never meant to win. They were just pieces, tools for a much bigger game." I stared at her, my mind racing. It was all a game that had started long before I ever stepped foot in this courtroom. A game that had ruined everything I thought I knew about who I was. But it didn't matter anymore. "I'm not a pawn in your game," I said, stepping forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "I'll expose the truth. I'll tear everything down, even if it means bringing my own family to their knees." Maya stepped back, her face hardening. "Do you think they'll care, Lena? Do you think anyone will believe you?" Her words felt like ice, but they only fueled the fire inside me. I knew what I had to do. The truth had to come out. The trial was set to begin in an hour. I was supposed to sit at the prosecution table, ready to present the case that would tear Carlos's world apart. But now, it wasn't just Carlos's world. It was my world. The pieces of my life, my family, were tangled in this web of lies. I knew what I had to do. I didn't wait for the trial to start. I walked straight to the judge's chamber, my pulse racing. The decision was mine now. I wasn't going to let them control this. Not anymore. Inside the chamber, I found Judge Powell sitting behind his desk, flipping through some paperwork. He didn't even look up when I entered. "I need to speak with you," I said, my voice low but firm. He raised an eyebrow but didn't object. "What is it, Captain?" I threw the files on his desk. The ones James had sent me. The financial documents, the money transfers, the lies. "You've been compromised," I said, my voice steady, despite the anger threatening to spill over. "You've been working with Maya Grant. You've been part of the conspiracy to bring this country to its knees." He looked at the files but didn't react, his face unreadable. "You're treading dangerous ground, Captain." "No," I said, my voice rising. "You are." The door behind me creaked open, and I heard the sound of footsteps. It was Carlos. He stood there, his expression unreadable, eyes hollow. He looked at me, then at Judge Powell. "This ends now." For the first time, I saw him stand up to the very people who had been pulling his strings. I knew, then, that this was no longer just about family loyalty. It was about justice, the real kind. The moment passed. Judge Powell rose from his chair. "You think this is the end, Captain? You think exposing the truth will fix everything?" I stepped forward. "It's not about fixing everything. It's about making sure no one else gets to control the game." Hours later, Carlos was in custody. The media was swarming the courthouse. the story breaking wide open. The corruption ran deep, but now, for the first time in years, I was the one holding the cards. The truth was out. My family, my life had been torn apart. But somehow I felt free. I had fought for justice, not for my family but for myself, for my future. In the end, the only way to win was to face the truth, no matter the cost. I walked out of the courthouse, the weight on my shoulders lifting with every step. I wasn't just a footnote anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was Lena Martinez. And I had finally written my own story.